I used to think that because I lived in so many places that I understood what home was. That if you can walk into a space and make it work, make it feel comfortable, make it look like you belong there, then that's home. But the truth is, for most of my life, home was never something that I actually created. It was something I was assigned. So let's talk about it. Hey, it's me, Lo, and welcome back to Lo Unmuted. This is season 1, Unmuted, a return to self, where I share my journey of becoming. It's the small, quiet decisions, the lessons, and the freedom that comes from aligning your life with who you truly are. If you're ready to step away from what no longer serves you and live life on your own terms, well, you're in the right place. So, listeners, for me, redefining home didn't start with a new space. It actually started with a realization. You would think after moving so many times, I would have figured out what home is. But when I really sat down with it and really thought about it, I realized I hadn't. And that's because every 18 to 24 months, sometimes a little longer if I was lucky, home changed. I'm talking new state, new country, new house, new routine. Alaska, Germany, Japan, to name a few. Different time zones, different cultures, different everything. And you learn how to adjust. You learn how to make things work. You learn how to take what you have and make it as comfortable as possible. But there's a difference between being comfortable and being settled. I was comfortable in a lot of places, but I don't know if I was ever truly settled. And one memory came back to me recently, and it helped me understand why. We were stationed in Enid, Oklahoma, and my grandmother and my mom drove all the way from San Antonio to come and see me. And this was actually the first time my grandmother had ever visited me as an adult. I mean, as a mom and as a wife. And I remember feeling so proud to show her my home, just to have her in my space and share that part of my life with her. So one day we were folding laundry together, just a regular moment, and she looked up at me and said, "Lorraine, you have a fine looking house here. I'm proud of you." And I said, "Thank you, Granny, but we won't be here long. I want to go back overseas. I want to experience living in Germany." She looked at me and said, "That sounds nice and everything, but you need to stay put. Stop moving your family around so much and put some roots down, girl." And I heard her, but I didn't listen. Not in a disrespectful way, though, but in a way that said she really doesn't understand this life. So I pushed and pushed for my husband to put in for an assignment, and we got Germany, and we left. And for years, I didn't even think about that moment. But now I understand exactly what she meant. Because when you know something is temporary, you don't attach to it the same way. You don't fully exhale. You don't fully root. You keep it a part of yourself ready to go at all times. And I didn't realize how much of that stayed with me until everything stopped. When the moving stopped, when the assignments stopped, when there was nowhere else to go, I was left with a question I had never really had to answer before. What does home feel like when it's not temporary? Because for so long, home was tied to a location, a duty station, a house on base, a place where we're living for now. But it wasn't something I chose. It was something I built with intention. It was something I adapted to. And adaptation will carry you, but it won't root you. So when I found myself here in this space, in this season of my life, I realized something that was hard to admit. I had never actually created a home that reflected me. Not fully, not without compromise, not without time limits, not without knowing this won't last forever. And that realization was heavier than I expected because it meant starting over in a way that felt unfamiliar. Not in a new place, but in the same place. Learning how to stay, learning how to settle, learning how to choose instead of adjust. And that's how the Dow House was created. Not just as a space, but as a decision. A decision to finally build something that wasn't temporary. Something that didn't have an expiration date attached to it. Something that felt like me without editing, without shrinking, without preparing to leave. For the first time in my life, I wasn't setting up a house. I was creating a home. And I had to learn what that actually meant. Because when you've spent years living in motion, stillness feels so unfamiliar, even when it's safe. There were moments where I caught myself thinking, don't get too comfortable, though. This could change. And nothing was changing. That was just conditioning. That was years of learning not to attach too deeply because you might have to leave. So, redefining home for me wasn't just about furniture or decor. It wasn't about making a space look good. It was about teaching myself that I could stay, that I could settle, that I could exhale without waiting for the next move. And that took time. If I'm being honest, it's still taking time. But what I've come to understand is this: home is not where I'm sent anymore. Home is what I choose. It's what I create. And it's what I protect. It's what I allow myself to feel fully without preparing to leave it. And for me, that's new, but it's also necessary. Because after a life of constant movement, there comes a moment where you just don't need another destination. You need grounding. And I'm finally allowing myself to have that. So I want you to sit with something this week. What does home feel like for you when it's not temporary? Not where you are, but how you feel where you are. Pay attention to that. I want to thank you for being here with me, and I'll meet you here next Wednesday. But until then, stay unmuted.